From League Safe World Headquarters, it's Fantasy Football Almost Daily. With Paul Charchia, Matt Harrison, Christian Peterson, and Brian Johnson.
It is Tuesday of Week 8, and it is officially the Bye-Pocalypse. We are here with Fantasy Football Free Agency recommendations. And by we, I mean Christian Peterson and Brian Johnson. Hello, guys.
Hello.
The last couple of weeks have been pretty moribund. This is a more exciting week for free agency, I think.
Can you just put apocalypse at the end of everything?
Anything. You can put it.
It doesn't have to rhyme.
That's right.
Like Bye-Pocalypse doesn't rhyme with apocalypse.
No, it really doesn't.
Just
but it doesn't. I don't think it has to rhyme. Okay. No. If you had a series of bad cheeseburgers,
that would be cheeseburger
apocalypse.
Apocalypse.
You can put it at the end of anything. Yes, yes,
okay.
You can.
Yeah, rolls off the tongue.
It does. I'm going to start at the quarterback position, even though it's not that exciting. Trevor Siemian is at the top of my list of free agent quarterbacks based on the schedule. Obviously, hasn't been a high-end fantasy producer to this point, but with the next 2 weeks, we have 12 teams off, and he's got the Raiders and Saints the next 2 weeks.
There you go.
That's your number 32 and number 30 pass defense in the NFL by yards. And keep in mind, Siemian does have a 300-yard, 4-touchdown game in his history. So, he can, and is within the realm of possibility that he could have explosive output.
Maybe. I think the problem is that Denver so clearly just wants to run the ball and keep it out of Siemian's hands. And for him to put up 300 yards and 4 touchdowns,
which he did.
That somehow maybe the Saints could do that against the Broncos, the Raiders. They have explosive offenses. I'm trying to think of a scenario where the Broncos even need him to put up that much production.
Okay, but they did against the Bengals in Week 3. So I mean, it's if not now, when? I mean, if nothing else, Siemian gives you a guy who shouldn't be any worse than what he's been giving you every week, which is 200 yards and a touchdown. So in a difficult bye week, that's your minimum.
Sure.
I like his prospects on the road any week, Siemian's, to put up numbers like that, like he did. It was in Cincinnati.
It was in Cincinnati. You're right.
In Denver, they're going to run the ball and play defense for the most part, unless someone comes in and flips a script, which we haven't seen in
anybody
2 years.
No,
I don't know.
No, probably not.
Yeah, he's a desperation play, but I'm with you. He's viable. He's got 2 great receivers, so if he does have to throw the ball, he's got weapons. So.
Alex Smith generally owned, but if he's not owned, he's a plausible start this week with Indianapolis on the schedule as well. That's his 3rd straight easy start for Smith. Did nothing in the rain against the Raiders in Oakland a couple of weeks ago. Then had a nice game last week.
Now he reached his ceiling last week, 211 yards and 2 touchdowns.
That's what he does.
Yep.
That's your top end. He's not a running quarterback anymore, as we've discussed in the office.
Not running at all, and he just kills everyone on his team, though. I think last week he had 24 pass attempts to 10 different receivers, making it virtually impossible
for
Macklin or
Kelsey. It's bad.
It is bad, right? I thought Kelsey was sitting in a nice game.
Yep,
that was really disappointing. One other emergency play, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Geno Smith's obviously gone with the ACL, and while I don't wish injury on anybody, especially not an ACL injury, sayonara. I have no interest in seeing Geno Smith in the NFL again, and maybe this will be his exit way to a new career that he will enjoy more than the NFL and be better at.
Maybe
he'll be a great actuary.
He was a decent clipboard carrier, I thought.
I don't know.
He didn't drop the clipboard.
No, a few times he did.
He's a good baseball hat wearer.
Yeah, that is true. He looked very chic in the baseball hat.
Yeah.
The Jets have got the Browns and the Dolphins the next 2 weeks. So.
Yeah.
Right, Stewbeard could be back. Fire up Stewbeard. All right, let's go to the running back position, which is a little more interesting. Mike Gillislee's owned now in 81% of leagues, it looks like. 29% availability for Gillislee. He's at the top of my list if he's available.
Yeah, I think without a doubt. It sounds like, well, of course, at this time last week, it sounded like LaShawn McCoy wasn't going to play last week, and then they inexplicably started him, and he re-injured.
It wasn't inexplicably. It was foolish. Let's call it what it was. It was stupid.
Yeah.
I spent all Sunday morning responding to all these tweets about Gillislee and McCoy, and my take was you can't play McCoy because they're not so stupid that they're going to run a guy with a bad hamstring into the ground. Well, that's what they did. And it turns out it was right not to play him because he ended up with 9 yards, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gillislee came in and only got 20, so he wasn't any better at that point. But
they each only got. I mean, McCoy got 1 carry, right? And Gillislee had like 4.
McCoy had
McCoy
had
it was
8
bad.
or 9.
Yeah.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, 8 or 9.
Was he
for
11
like 9
for
yards.
8 or 8 for 11?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Gillislee,
He finished with like 8 carries.
his
too.
first carry came in and reeled off like a 12-yard run. Gillislee, that is, and then that was mind-boggling, the whole thing. And I'm worried. I think they're gonna have Shady active in this game, and if that's the case, I don't think you can touch either this week. It's just too sketchy. But you got to add Gillislee in the event that McCoy sits, because
for sure.
Yeah,
and I think there's a decent chance that he sits here, and I'd like to think that the Bills aren't going to be so dumb as to do it again. Really?
Yeah.
The Bills maybe, but I'd like to think not.
Just the absolute worst case scenario for McCoy owners who were on easy street after his hot start, and then he suffers an injury. You'd rather have it been an injury that, okay, he's out 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We know he's out 3 weeks.
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
You can go get the replacement and plug him in, and you're
That's
okay.
right.
But this is just
well, we know
scenario.
McCoy's a ticking time
McCoy
bomb.
apocalypse.
Yeah, McCoy
McCoy
apocalypse.
apocalypse.
He's a ticking time bomb, and the timer has been activated on McCoy. So at any week now, he could be done for the year with this hamstring injury. So.
You guys know how I feel about Kenneth Dixon.
Mm-hmm.
This is your chance to go get him. It's into the bye week. Somebody's going to be frustrated, drop him. Somebody's not going to see this Terrence West thing clearly. So here's what I'm of the opinion that Terrence West is a no more than it takes what the defense gives him quality back.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and compared every single game that he's played against the yards per carry that the opponent allows. And if this arm is yards per carry, it's a straight line, he's basically right on that line. He gives you whatever the defense gives up. Mm-hmm. If the defense gives up 3.5 yards per carry, he's running for 3.5 yards per carry. In every game but 2, he's been within 0.9 of yards per carry of whatever the defense allows. One game he was materially worse. One game he was materially better. That's it. He's just that guy. Kenneth Dixon comes out of the bye. John Harbaugh said on Monday, we want to give him more carries. So he comes out of the bye as somebody who's going to get more looks. I believe he should be acquired now.
Yeah, I agree. Terrence West is, like you said, he's just a guy, and I think he's proven that now over the last couple of weeks. He's had a couple of big games, but Dixon is the more exciting player, the guy that everybody liked in the preseason, and it was pretty clear that he wasn't healthy over these last few weeks when they've brought him back, and he's been on the field but just hasn't played a role. Yeah. And so the hope is over the bye week they really start to assimilate him into the offense, and yeah,
I think they will. Ravens have lost 3 out of the last 4, I think, games, so they ought to be ripe to be willing to make some changes.
They need to mix. Flacco has the most pass attempts in the NFL.
Yeah, that's
with like
wrong.
5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's insane. So hopefully they need to mix it up, have a playmaker coming out of the backfield catching passes or something, because it's not working.
Matt Jones got benched last week after he fumbled twice. Did not get any kind of an endorsement this week from John Gruden, who's, that reporters are asking. You go back to him and, we're not ready to make that call yet. So this thing looks like we're in probably a running back by committee situation. Chris Thompson got the majority of the work last week. I thought, me, like most fantasy players, were rooting for Rob Kelly to get all the work once they benched Matt Jones. I'm like, let's finally get the preseason phenom in. And he got almost no carries. Instead, it was a lot of Chris Thompson, in part because Chris Thompson's really good at pass protection, which doesn't help fantasy owners a lot. But it did put Thompson on the field, including in a goal line situation. He got a goal line run. So what are your thoughts on Thompson and Rob Kelly?
Well, I don't think Rob Kelly is very good. I think if he was, we would have seen him already, because we know that Matt Jones isn't very good, and the only reason that he got benched is because of the multiple fumbles. So it feels to me like Rob Kelly is kind of a non-factor here. Like I think Jones will still be involved. I think they'll give him some more opportunities. I think they probably sent the message loud and clear with the benching last game, but that Matt Jones is a better player than Rob Kelly. And Chris Thompson, I think he is what he is too. He's a pass catching guy. He's a pass protection kind of guy, but I just don't know if he's capable of that rugged between the tackles type of running. So I think they need somebody else to play that role. So this backfield feels like it's going to be a mess for probably the rest of the season. So I wouldn't invest too heavily in Chris Thompson. A little bit more if I was in a PPR league, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's all I was going to say. If you're a Matt Jones owner and you're that worried, if there's PPR, in your league, I would add Thompson. If not, I would add Kelly as the handcuff. But
All right.
neither are very exciting. But yeah, Jones is could fall off a cliff pretty soon here.
Let's go to page 2. Matt Asiata, increasingly used as a pass receiving back. Receptions over the last 4 games have gone 1, 2, 3, and then 6 last week. Jerick McKinnon's got an ankle injury. We don't know the severity of it yet. He came back and played on it, but didn't do much, and then got benched. Well, not benched, but they took him off the field because he was hurt. There's a chance Matt Asiata's going to get like all the work on Monday night against Chicago.
Yeah, that's what happened a couple years ago when Adrian Peterson missed virtually the entire season. It was Matt Asiata who stepped into the fantasy producing role when he scored double-digit touchdowns. And I think he caught almost 40 passes that year as well. So he's capable of doing that, as we've seen over the last few games. And if McKinnon is clearly the guy that the Vikings prefer to give the ball to, but if he's going to be dinged up with this ankle injury for any period of time, then yeah, Asiata is useful. I think only until McKinnon gets healthy and comes back, but that might be a couple games here.
And goal line work.
And either way, you're getting the goal line work.
He struggled in pass protection big time, didn't he?
He did.
Asiata. That's going to be the most important factor for what running back's going to see the most snaps for the Vikings this year.
That's a good point.
He should vulture the goal line looks moving forward, though.
You've been a big Jordan Howard guy all season, Brian. The situation there is deteriorated. We thought he'd be the start. 2 weeks ago, we thought he was going to just be the starter the rest of the year. Now, fast forward to today, they've got a really difficult matchup with the Vikings coming up on Monday night. Then they have the bye week. Who do you think is what does that running back landscape look like after the bye? So advance to week 10. Jeremy Langford presumably back healthy at that point. Kadeem Carey's got more work than Howard did last week. What's our situation in 2 weeks?
Dicey, muddled. I can't think of any other adjectives. I'm not too worried about Langford. He was just bad. I don't think he's going to come in and take over the starting job. We could have
He was good enough to be the starter.
I don't think he's any worse than Jordan Howard, and I don't think he's any worse or any better than Kadeem Carey.
Kadeem Carey's look good.
Just okay.
From watching the games, it seems like the holes are opening up a little better for him than they were for Howard. Give him the benefit of the doubt, but I don't know. It could be like a Raiders type rotation when Langford comes back, and basically means none of these guys are going to be startable in fantasy football.
I think that's your most likely scenario. Also, watch the offensive line injuries right now. They're all kinds of beat up now, but they might come out of the week healthier. And Howard's a big back. He doesn't make people miss. He needs his offensive line to open up holes so he can get to the second level, start punishing linebackers.
Yeah, the window to trade Howard is pretty much closed, but if you can, I would do it right now because you're not playing him this week against the Vikings. It's an awful matchup.
What about picking up James Starks now? 2 weeks removed or 3 weeks removed from him coming back and presumably being the starting running back for the Green Bay Packers. He's available in more than half of the leagues.
There certainly seems like there will be opportunity. The problem is James Starks was one of the worst running backs in the NFL.
1.8 yards per carry.
He is the worst running back in the NFL.
I mean, I think, honestly, I'd rather have Niall Davis. I mean, even if Starks was fully healthy right now, it feels like Niall Davis has a better chance of getting in there and doing something. I mean, it feels like the Packers have to have seen all that they need to out of James Starks, who's been on their roster for years and repeatedly failed to take advantage of opportunities. So
even Don Jackson, I don't know how serious his hand injury is for him, but anyone that gets an opportunity to perform will perform better than James Starks. I'm convinced of that. So I'm not touching Starks.
Well, let's
personally.
use this as our transition to Ty Montgomery, who's actually available in 60% of leagues.
Is he really?
Yeah, it's you wouldn't think it would be.
Yeah, maybe
quite
the
much.
Thursday game last week
45%
had something to do with that.
Yeah, it was a
people
Thursday
didn't have
game.
time to kind of react to it.
It was all because of the Thursday bit.
Yeah.
And Niall Davis came in. Everybody thought, I think mistakenly, Niall Davis was going to be the guy. He's actually got a higher ownership percentage. It looks like at least for a couple of weeks, he'll be your starting running back, regardless of how your team treats it or how your league treats him. And frankly, I don't care how your league treats him. You can make a case either way. That's fine with me.
Just make a decision on it one way or the other.
That's right. Yes. You
sure
can just say,
your league
look,
knows about
he's playing running back, so we're going to treat him like a running back. But my worry is in a couple of weeks, he's going to be back to being a wide receiver, and then you're going to have to switch everything back. You're going to have to go, undo this decision.
We can agree that the best way to treat it, in our opinions, is if the Packers actually list him as a running back on their depth chart, that's when you make the change in your league, right?
I'm totally fine with that. When the Packers call him a running back, we'll call him a running back. Perfectly fine. I think that's a extremely defensible and logical position as well. Just because ESPN is letting you flex him either way doesn't mean you have an obligation as a league to flex Ty Montgomery either way.
Right.
right? I mean, they're just saying we're going to give you the option. Leagues, do what figure it out yourself.
Yep.
I'm fine with either way. I mean, we usually have a strong opinion on these sorts of things. Like he absolutely should or should not. I'd say.
But either way, he's a spectacular pickup right now, right? If he's out there in your league, he's the number
spectacular.
He's the number one target, isn't he?
Well,
I mean, he's getting all sorts of receptions out of the backfield. They're using, it's whether he's getting handoffs or these short little dump off passes. It's the way that the Packers have chosen to move the ball without a bell cow running back, and you could make an argument that their offense has looked better because of it.
Lacey was averaging 5.1 yards per carry. So, I mean, they were running well with Lacey. He's not a running back. The fact they even tried to use him in goal line work was absurd. He can't do that. He can't move a pile.
I don't know. He ran for 60 yards on 10 carries, right, in that game?
Well,
Granted, one of them was like a 30-yarder.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he can't do that because he's fast, right? If you give him some room to run, he'll run. And I'm just saying he's not a running back, and he's not going to help you in some of the ways that running backs traditionally do, but he will catch passes because he's a wide receiver and he's got really good hands.
Yeah, so anytime you're a receiver who's getting 10 targets per game, plus,
which he's not going to get. That's what he got Thursday. He's not going to get 10 a game.
It's 2 games in a row that he's done that.
Well,
yeah, he got a lot of.
He got a lot of targets the week before too.
But half. Well, it doesn't matter. But half were like a running lined up in the backfield. The other half were wide receiver. So I don't know. This crazy usage can't last. Maybe it can. Who knows? Packers are a weird.
I mean, all they have is Niall Davis and James Starks. I mean, like potentially for the rest of the season.
They have to use it.
I mean,
so the question is, it may turn into a rotation of guys once everybody's back and healthy, and that could even start this week. Niall Davis could be a factor this week. Mm-hmm. For the purpose of this podcast, free agency recommendations available. How much you bidding on Ty Montgomery?
In PPR, I'm going heavy
bonkers?
on him.
In an ESPN league or a non-ESPN league?
Right.
Yeah. If I can use him at either running back or wide receiver, then it's even more. But yeah, I go at 50-60% of my budget that's left, or maybe even of my budget from the beginning of the year. If I've got $50 in a $100 cap fab league, I think
that's the kind of money you're putting at your rest of the year starter. So you're basically saying Ty Montgomery is going to be a rest of the year weekly starter if you're going to blow 60% of your original.
I think he has as good of a chance of being a rest of the year starter as any other player who's on waivers right now. I think we're at the point in the season where most players with any kind of upside are on rosters.
Well, in your back pocket, you'll always have if Jordy or Davante Adams gets injured, then he slips right in as a starting wide receiver too. So even if this whole running back experiment, whatever, doesn't pan out, he would have value as a wide receiver, his actual position, if something were to happen to a starter. But you're really rolling the dice on this guy, and it's probably it's worth it at this point to see what happens. But don't expect him to be running back the rest of the year. Who knows?
Here's the one thing I think we should say about the position eligibility. It shouldn't be both. You should not have the option as the owner to put him at running back or receiver. Your league needs to make a determination. There's no other player in the league where you get the option of starting him in position, whatever position you want.
The only ones I can ever remember were Joe Webb was listed as a wide receiver. He was wide receiver quarterback on Yahoo. 3 or 4 years ago.
He got a couple quarterback starts, and people were able to start him at wide receiver.
Yeah, and then the Marcus Colson was the biggest one in 07.
A tight end
wide receiver. Yeah, it was just like wide receiver one in your tight end spot. That wasn't fair. But
let's use this as our transition to Davante Adams, available in 30% of leagues. He had been 2 catches, 3 catches, 30 yards, and a touchdown for a lot of games.
Yeah, he was scoring touchdowns.
Then he went bonkers on Thursday night. So I don't know that Thursday night's going to be replicatable for him. Probably not. And it probably helps that Ty Montgomery's off the field, so that gives him a few extra snaps at wide receiver that he might have lost to Montgomery. That Montgomery's now at running back. So your thoughts on Davante Adams, available in 30% of leagues?
Last year, you couldn't granny toss him the football without him catching
that
it.
Is correct.
And now he's making front shoulder off-target touchdown.
Yeah, he's improved.
He looks really good.
I think that's the interesting part of this, is that this is the Davante Adams that we thought we were going to get last year, coming off two off seasons ago when he was the star of the off season, and then Jordy went down with his injury, and it was like, oh man, we've got a potential superstar on our hands, and he just didn't deliver on that. But now he's starting to show the type of talent that we've heard about from him. And simultaneously, it is very clear that Jordy Nelson is not the player that he once was.
No.
Not nearly as explosive, and we've seen that over the past few games where Nelson has been almost an afterthought now for a game or two. So maybe there's a chance that this truly is a changing of the guard, and that if Aaron Rodgers can trust Davante Adams, that he turns into a legit wide receiver 2 fantasy type.
Right.
I think that's a possibility. The risk is that, well, they have other guys. They have Randall Cobb. They still have Jordy Nelson, and that there's a lot of mouths to feed there. So it's certainly not without risk. But again, looking from the standpoint of all of these scrubs that are on the waiver wire right now, this guy has a ton of upside.
Yeah, Adams has a ton.
It's
I'm
not far-fetched, and
guaranteeing
he
he's gonna
outscores
deliver.
Jordy
Yeah,
the rest of the way. Not at this point.
Yeah, so
I saw some stat about Jordy's separation point at target or at ball release or whatever, and it's telling that he's lost a step between Davante Adams and Randall Cobb. It was under a yard. The defender was near him, and the other guy's 2 yards away. Yeah, so he's getting no separation. He's lost almost a full step at this point. So
so I think if you're in need of a wide receiver, again, that at this point in the season, this is a guy that potentially has that sort of season-changing upside for you. So you would go pretty heavily after him.
All right, let's go to the Brian Johnson desk with Marquise Lee, a guy you advocated heavily last week.
Well, everyone watching this or listens to Fantasy Football Weekly, right?
Yeah, we hope so.
I doubled down as my take-home and premature speculation.
Not that you're bragging.
Not at all. But no, I like Marquise Lee. He looks like the best wide receiver on the team right now. He's getting more targets than Allen Robinson.
Or is he just the only guy that runs routes that aren't further than 10 yards downfield, so Bortles can actually hit him?
Yeah.
Possibly.
You guys have seen the photo of Bortles holding the ball upside down?
Yeah, the walk like an Egyptian.
Yeah, it's bad. It's I don't know how you get ready to pass with the ball like that.
I mean, that seems like the angle here is that Bortles, for whatever reason, just can't connect with Allen Robinson or Allen Hurns right now. So Marquise Lee is sort of the beneficiary because he's running these sort of vanilla, shorter routes across the middle of the field. And
but he has pedigree. I mean, he was an early second-round pick. He was picked 22 picks before Allen Robinson.
Maybe this is the Davante Adams situation. Maybe he's finally delivering on the pedigree as well, instead of a couple of other more established guys who are struggling.
It's clear Jacksonville sucks, and they're going to be behind and throwing just like last year. We thought that was going to change this year with a better defense, but no. So, Lee is viable. They have a tough schedule moving forward. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it's pretty ugly for Jaguars skill players, but Lee's worth a look.
All right, one more receiver that I want to talk about. We've got a deeper list available at Fantasy at League Safe Post. Brandon LaFell has scored in 3 straight games, and even with Tyler Eifert returning, it feels like there's still room here for another receiver to do a little something. Marvin Jones was at least a spot starter in that Bengals offense when Tyler Eifert, and Eifert may not be 100% here for a month. I mean, who knows? He got almost no work last week. If even he gets double the snaps, it only puts him on the field for 28 plays or something. So it seems like there's still some opportunity for Brandon LaFell. And this week, they get Washington in London. Josh Norman probably not going to make that trip. So there could be an opportunity here.
Yeah, maybe Brandon LaFell isn't
as awful as we thought.
This horrible player that everybody thinks. He had a really good season a couple of years ago in New England when they had no choice but to throw. He was kind of their only option. So that's not quite the situation here because they have AJ Green, and I do think Tyler Eifert, assuming that he comes back 100% healthy at some point, it might not be this week or next week, but that he comes back healthy, I think that LaFell's red zone opportunities, which he's been getting over the last 3 games,
more than AJ Green.
I think those are going to all but evaporate, though, aren't they? With Tyler Eifert, I mean that's where Eifert is so good.
At some point, they should. Yeah. That's been the case in the past. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I want to just transition briefly to tight end. Jack Doyle's available for a couple more weeks with Dwayne Allen out. They've got a week 10 bye. Most people think Dwayne Allen's going to miss this week, next week, go through the bye, and then come out healthy. If that's the case, then Doyle remains fantasy viable, especially if Philip Dorsett still can't go. Yeah,
it's kind of too bad that Dwayne Allen keeps ruining everything for the Indianapolis tight ends from a fantasy perspective because of him, Coby Fleener was never really unleashed, so to speak, in Indy. And now Jack Doyle looks great when he's the only pass-catching tight end there, but then he's nothing when Dwayne Allen comes back. Yeah,
once Dwayne Allen comes back, it all gets
so Doyle's a good ad for the next 2 weeks, and then after that, you can drop him and pick somebody else up.
Well, don't forget about Swoop, and I can't remember his first name, but he shouldn't have one. He should just go by Swoop.
Just by Swoop.
It's the Swoop-pocalypse.
Don't forget about Swoop.
He had five catches on Sunday, so the fill-in tight end for Dwayne Allen.
Swoop.
It's something Swoop, but he should just go by Swoop because it's accurate.
The bipocalypse does end up having a lot of kicker ramifications. You know, you've been sitting on some kicker for 6, 7, 8 weeks, and now you got to make a change. Here's the kicker you want. Caleb Sturgis is the kicker to go get. He's made 14 of 15 attempts, so he's kicking at 93%. He's scored multiple field goals in every game this year. He's hit 2 of them from over 50 yards, so we know he's got the leg for the 50-yarders. His bye is in the rearview mirror already, and it feels like this Eagles offense is starting to turn into that can get it close but can't punch it in kind of offense, which is hard to ever guess. But if I were to say to you, name me the go-to touchdown scorer for the Eagles, the answer would be
nobody.
I don't know. Nobody. Yeah. Right. Exactly. You know, they don't have go-to touchdown guy, which I think exemplifies the fact that this offense can be a stall it out in the red zone offense. So Caleb Sturgis, utterly forgotten in the world of kickers.
He needs a motorcycle related nickname.
Sturgis?
Yeah,
he probably does.
Chopper?
Ooh, I like it.
Chopper Sturgis.
That's
the problem is that there's never been a Caleb that's ever ridden a motorcycle before.
That's true. There's been plenty of Calebs who've suffered beatings that have suffered beatings on playgrounds just based on the name.
They ride like horse and buggies. They don't ride
that's probably a good point. I mean, can you think of a bully named Caleb? No. Has there ever been a bully named Caleb? Never. The history of Calebs.
There's a Caleb out there just plotting.
So all the more reason to go with Chopper.
Chopper. I like it. Chopper Sturgis. All right, there you go. You can get the full list, all of the information you want on all of the free agents at League Safe Post. What else? Tomorrow is the big panic room. Who is the reigning champion?
That would be me.
That'd be you.
Yeah.
Crown scepter nearby
we'll be back. He'll be trying to oust me.
He doesn't want to win because he doesn't want the crown and scepter. That's going to be the flaw.
Well, I don't have hair to mess up anymore, so.
All right, good. So now you're the beautiful hair. Now that you're shorn, you're willing to wear the crown?
If you say so.
All right.
If you call it beautiful, we'll say it's beautiful.
Okay, deal. We'll see you tomorrow.